Every single society has this invisible checklist for life milestones.
You know that feeling, right? You look around and it seems like everybody else is just moving forward, hitting all these milestones, and you're kind of stuck in place. It's such a common feeling, and believe me, you're not alone.
If you haven't had kids by the time you're 30, if you haven't met the one by the time you're in your late 20s, that you're off time, you're falling behind.
Hey, welcome to Real Talk English. Today, we're going to talk about something I think pretty much everyone has felt at some point. That nagging feeling that you're somehow behind in life.
Says who? You're not behind. You're not late. You are in the exact same boat as almost every other human being on the planet right now. Stop apologizing. Stop telling yourself behind because you're not. You're right on time. You are capable of figuring this out, and you will. And remind yourself every step of the way, this is your life. Stop comparing. Stop apologizing.
So today, we're going to dig into why that happens, and more importantly, what we can do about it. And we're going to do this by breaking down some really powerful ideas from a talk by the amazing motivational speaker, Mel Robbins. So we've got two big goals here. First, to really get her message about life's so-called timeline, and second, to learn some awesome natural English phrases while we do it. Sound good? Okay, let's jump right in.
All right, so first question, where does all this pressure even come from? Well, Mel Robbins points out that pretty much every society has this, well, it's like an unspoken plan, an invisible set of rules for how your life is supposed to go. She actually calls it an invisible checklist, and it's this idea that there are these specific things you're supposed to be achieving in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s. It's almost like someone handed you a to-do list for your own life, but you never actually saw the list. And of course, if you don't stick to this timeline, you start to feel like you're failing, right? I mean, a classic example she gives is this idea that if you're still single in your late 20s, you're already off track. Now, the two key phrases she uses to talk about this are super important for everyday English. Let's break them down.
Okay, first up is to check off. This is super simple. It just means to mark something on a list as done. You check off groceries, you check off chores, or on a bigger scale, you could say something like, I really want to check off visiting Japan from my bucket list. Then we have to fall behind. This one's pretty intuitive. It means you're moving slower than the people around you. You can fall behind in a race, for sure, but you can also fall behind on your homework if you don't keep up. See how that works? So, let's talk about the different stages of life, starting with the 20s. How does this whole checklist thing mess with us then? Well, Mel argues that our 20s are a decade that people get completely wrong. We put this insane pressure on ourselves to have it all perfect, like right away. I mean, this quote just says it all, doesn't it? That feeling that you need to have your entire life plan mapped out the day after graduation, and that phrase she uses to figure out, oh man, you will hear this one all the time in English. Let's take a closer look. To figure out. Seriously, this is one of the most useful phrasal verbs out there. It just means to understand something or find a solution to a problem. Like, I can't figure out why my internet isn't working. Or, it took me a few days to figure out this new phone. Super, super common. So here's the big takeaway for your 20s. It's not about having all the answers. It's supposed to be messy. It's for exploring, for trying a bunch of different things, maybe failing at some of them, and just learning who you actually are. It's all about the experience, not about being perfect.
Okay, so if the 20s are for exploring, what's next? The 30s. Now that invisible checklist tells us this is when you're supposed to get serious, right? Build that stable life. But you can probably guess that Mel sees it a little differently.
Yeah, the big word for the 30s is settle down. That's the pressure point. But let's stop and think. What does that even mean? And more importantly, is that something you actually want or just what you're told you should want?
So this phrase, to settle down, usually means starting to live a quieter, more stable life. You know, the whole package, getting married, maybe buying a house, having kids. You hear it all the time. Wow, it seems like all my friends are settling down. And Mel's point is, hey, that's great if it's for you, but it is not a requirement.
But what happens when your life doesn't look like that? Well, it can feel absolutely awful. Mel actually shares a message from someone who feels totally stuck, and she uses this incredible phrase. She says she's hitting a wall.
This is such a great idiom to know, to hit a wall. It means you've reached a point where you just can't make any more progress. Imagine you're running and you literally run into a brick wall. That's the feeling.
You could be working on a project at work and say, I've hit a wall. I just don't have any more ideas. All right, moving on. What about the 40s, the 50s, and beyond? The big lie society tells us here is that it's too late. Too late to change your job, too late to chase a dream, too late to start over. And Mel's message is a resounding no. That is absolutely not true. And she knows this from experience. She talks about her own story, how she felt like a complete failure in her 40s. She literally says she felt like she had royally screwed it all up. That phrase, to screw up, and what comes next, to turn it around, are two more super powerful, very real phrases we gotta know. Okay, so to screw up. This is just a really common informal way to say you made a big mistake. Like, oops, I really screwed up that exam. But here's the hopeful part. You can always turn it around. This means taking a bad situation and making it good. Think about a sports team that's losing badly, but then they come back and win. They turn the game around. And that's what Mel is saying. She turned her life around, and so can anyone. So her message is really one of empowerment. Your 40s, 50s, 60s, this isn't the end. It's your invitation to take everything you've learned, the good and the bad, and use it to build the life you actually want. It's time to get to work on the things that really, truly matter to you. Wow. Okay, that was a ton of amazing advice and some really useful vocabulary, right? So before we wrap up with the big ideas, let's just quickly run through all those great new English expressions we picked up. We learned so many good ones today. We've got to fall behind, to check off, to figure out, to settle down, to hit a wall, to screw up, to turn it around, and finally, to get to work. That is a seriously useful list. My challenge to you, try to use just one of them in a conversation today. Okay, so we've got the words, but what's really cool is how they all tie into the bigger picture. So let's quickly recap the main takeaways from Mel's talk. Number one, and this is the big one, that social timeline for your life, it's not real. It's just an idea someone made up a long time ago. Number two, every decade has its own purpose. Your 20s are for exploring, your 30s are for getting focused, and your 40s and beyond, that's your time for reinvention. Number three, feeling lost is not a sign of failure. It's usually a sign that you're about to grow. And finally, maybe the most important thing to remember is that it is never, ever too late to change your life and write a new story for yourself. All right, so now you've got all these new phrases and these big ideas in your head. I really, really encourage you to go find the original video from Mel Robbins and give it a watch. Listen for all the phrases we talked about today. It's the perfect practice. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. If this was helpful, you know the drill. A like, a comment, or a subscribe would mean the world. We'll see you next time on Real Talk English.